Hello, I'm Eric Kelly. I am a finance professor at the University of Tennessee and a faculty fellow with the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge. This is my second video in my Where Do I Start with the MEC series. And if you need to get acquainted with the case itself that I'm working through, I encourage you to go back and watch the first video of the series. And in that video, I simply brute force my way through it using functions that an advanced beginner or an intermediate Excel user should be able to follow. In this video, I'm going to kind of push the envelope forward just a little bit and introduce a data table method for working multi-step levels of these cases. So the general idea here that we're going to follow is we're going to organize our inputs and then do some calculations and then produce outputs. And so in the data table steps, I'm going to start with a little bit of pre-processing so that we can isolate all the inputs for a particular game in a particular way. And then after processing those and generating an output, I'm going to use a data table to go back and quickly hit different inputs from different levels and quickly generate a set of outputs. So you can sort of think of this as kind of a simplified version of a micro automation. And so let's take a quick look now at the case itself. So this is the spreadsheet that I completed the first time through. So you can see all the answers are filled in, and this is the speed challenge case, and so there's nothing terribly complicated here. It's just doing some stuff with a series of numbers. So the first couple of steps were easy in the sense that they're really just kind of single step problems, and so we don't really need anything special to get those done. So we can really answer all those questions pretty easily by just putting a single formula in the answer block, and that's what I did. And then when we got into level 3 and beyond, we had multiple steps. And so the way I accomplished this in the first round was I would use all this white space over to the right and just go level by level and kind of repeat a process there. And so I just filled all this up. So we got all this extra stuff out here. Now, in the data tables, I'm going to use this white space again as scratch paper, but I'm going to use it a little bit differently. Let's get started now with level 3. So I've got a blank slate here in level 3. So the first thing I want to notice is these spreadsheets are laid out very consistently across games in a given level. So here we've got a column that has the game number. Here we've got all the block of all the data that we need, and then here's some header information up here. So that's going to be critical. So I'm going to go over here to the right to my white space and isolate one game in the level. I'm going to do that with an X lookup. But first, let's just copy this header information over so that I can easily keep track of what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little label here for the level that I'm interested in. So I'm going to be working with example 3 first. Okay, now here I am going to X lookup. I'm going to look for that game. I'm going to go look in this first column here, and then I'm going to return the block of input. And so now, over here in my white space, I can isolate one level at a time. So if I change this to 21, I'll get game 21. Back to example 3. Okay. Now, below my inputs here, I can now do my processing and generate an output. So my processing here is going to be pretty simple. So let's go back to my objective here. I want to count the number of odd numbers in the set of 20. So I'll use this first column to just do some labels. So I want to know if number is odd. And so I'm going to say equals is odd. I'm going to go through that number. Now, recall, this is odd function doesn't like an array. So if I put a plus here in front of the array reference, I'll force that function to operate element by element on it. There's my trues and falses. And because I want to convert my trues and falses to ones and zeros, I can just perform a mathematical operation on this set, like multiplying by 1. And Excel is smart enough to figure out that I'm wanting an integer value. Okay, so they're almost done, actually. So the answer, the number of odds, is just going to be the sum of that row. So I'll write sum as my label. I'm going to sum this group. And there's my answer. Okay, so let's just check that. That is the correct answer. Okay, so I've done it correctly one time, and I've created a little module, if you will, over here to get everything in place. Okay, so now here's the real magic. So I want to iterate. I want to change this cell from example 3 through all the different game numbers and repeat the process. Well, that lends itself very naturally to a data table. Let me generate a sequence of numbers, and I'm going to need, I believe I'm going to need 10 rows in one column. I'm going to start at game number 21. So there's my 21 through 30. And so for my data table, let's see what I want to calculate over and over again. It's going to be this cell here. It's going to be the sum. Now, if I highlight all of this, Alt-D, T, gets me to a data table. My column input cell, so I've got a column input here. I've got no row input. So that's the cell that I'm going to change over and over again. So I'll hit enter there. And so notice that I've got zeros here. All that means is my data table is not updating automatically. Shortcut to make it update is F9. So anytime I see that, just remember to hit F9. All right, almost done. So there's my answers. We'll go and grab all of these. And paste the formulas over there. And I've got links back to those cells. So now I'm done with that level. Moving on to level 4, what you'll see is we're moving from counting the odd numbers to summing the odd numbers. So we've got a very similar process. So we can actually go ahead and start by copying some of this stuff down. And I need to change this to example 4 here for my my X lookup, and everything else I believe is adjusted appropriately. So now I'm working on level 4. Change this to 31. So yeah, so I'm getting the level 31 numbers. Okay, so how do I sum the odds? Well, all I need to do is grab a sum product from above. So that's going to be equal sum product. It's going to be the values array and the ones and zeros for the odd. And so that should be the answer. So let's check and see. Oh, that was actually for 31. Change this to example 4. So 757. Yep, 757 is the correct answer. So it looks like I'm ready to go with my data table. We'll go in here again and create a data table. So I need some numbers first. So we'll get 10 numbers, one column, starting with level 31. I'm interested in this value. Alt D T, data table. My column input cell would be here. Hit F9 for the update, and copy these over. And there's my values. Answers are correct. All right, let's take a look at what's next. I'm gonna skip level 5 and level 6 because these are single step problems that are much easier done by just putting a single formula in blank. Level 7 is a little bit more difficult, so it's got multiple steps. So I'll use a data table on this one. So what do I need to do? So sum the numbers less than equal to the x smallest number in the set of 20 numbers. So I need to figure out what the x smallest number is first. And I'm going to get all the numbers that are less than or equal to that, and then I'm going to sum all of those. So my format's a little bit different here. So I'm going to redo my scratch paper. Go out here, copy this header over, and what am I looking for here? I'm looking for an example. This is example which? This is example 7. I'm looking for example 7. We'll do an X lookup again, but I just need to make sure I grab that extra cell. Look for the game number. Game number column. And just make sure that I grab everything, including that first column of X's. And notice I've got this middle, or this 0 here, since there's nothing in that column. I'm just gonna change this to color, so gray this out just a little bit, so that I won't be distracted by that column. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to find the x smallest, so x small. So that, to find the x smallest, I'm going to use the small function. And the array is going to be this set of inputs, and the x value is going to be that. Okay, so there's the value. So now I need everything less than or equal to x small. Okay, so I'm going to use a filter to do that. So filter, I'm going to filter from this array. That array is less than or equal to this value. And there's my 3 smallest numbers. Now I need to sum those numbers. Sum. And notice I've got the pounds. I've got the dynamic reference here. So if this is wider, it'll cover them all. If it's narrower, it'll cover them all as well. And let's check and see if that's the correct answer for level, and it is 47. Okay, so now I am ready to do my data table. And I need 10 rows again in one column, and I'm going to start with number 61. I need to calculate sum as my output on here. Alt D T for a data table. Column input cell, set that equal to this one. Hit F9, update my values, copy into my answer blanks, and all are correct. Level 8. Level 8 says concatenate the numbers that are less than or equal to the x smallest number. Or should be the same as before. Okay, so two things. One, um, I'm starting off. I should start off level 8 the same way I started off level 7. I'm going to do the first early processes of finding the x smallest and getting the set that's less than or equal to the x smallest. Second, the structure of the inputs here. So if you look at this right here, this matches exactly what happened above. So that's going to be really nice for me. So I'm going to just copy my work here. Copy this. Say, everything lined up correctly. Stay in this column here, and I want to hit that first row that corresponds with the header. And then go over here, let's enter example 8. All right, so now everything's all loaded up appropriately. Okay, so first step was figure out the x smallest. I've already found that. And then I need everything that's less than or equal to the x smallest. And then finally, I don't need to sum. I need to concatenate. So equals, this is going to be a x join with no delimiter. So delimiter is open close quotes. I'm going to ignore empty. And the text is going to be this array. Okay, 151319. Is that correct? It is. Over here and set up my data table. 10 rows again in one column, starting with number 71. Oops. Here's my output. Alt-DT for a data table. Column input cell becomes this one. F9 to update the values. Copy those. Lots of green check marks. And so all are correct. Level 9, identical to level 8, except we're adding a semicolon delimiter in the concatenated string. Also, the inputs and outputs are of similar structure or identical structure, actually. So, again, I'm going to be able to go over here and do some copying. Let's grab everything. Back over so I can orient myself a little bit. Correct column, correct row, and update this to example 9. Data is filled. Okay, so what's the difference? I have a semicolon delimiter, so I'll put a semicolon right there. Now I've got a semicolon delimited string. My sequence of 10 numbers starting in, or one column starting with number 81. Value I want to output is this one. Alt-DT for a data table. Go to the column input cell, change that to this value. Hit F9 to update. Copy. formulas, and done. And last but not least, here we are on level 10. So level 10 is doing the same type of things that we're doing in previous levels, but the order is a little bit different. So we need to get to the even numbers first and then start doing some more processing. I'm going to build my X lookup from scratch also, since the structure is a little bit different. Copy this over. For example, 10, we got equals X. Lookup that. Nothing was found. Why was nothing found? Well, it's actually because game numbers, it wasn't coded as example 10, it was coded as example 0. Okay, so that's better. All right, so first thing we need to do, let's get this down to the even numbers. Go to the evens. And I can do that pretty quickly with a filter function. So I'm going to filter this array, and only if it is even. So I need something that returns true or falses. So is even, and recall that is even and is odd don't like arrays. And so you got to force it to operate on the array element by element. So adding putting a little plus in there. So again, that gives me my even numbers. Those clearly are even numbers. And now I need the third smallest. So the third smallest is equal to small. Third will go less than equal to small. So another filter. Filter that array. And I'm going to include if those values are less than or equal to the third smallest that I just calculated. So it gets me down to those. And then I need to sum. There's my sum, 144. Is that correct? Yes, it is. My array of numbers, so my game numbers, will go 10 rows in one column, starting with 91. Go. Sum that I want to calculate, Alt D T for a data table. The column input cell is going to be this one here. F9 updates my values. Copy them. And green check marks everywhere, and I'm done. All right, so the data table is, it's not necessarily something that you want to use all the time, but when you end up with multi-step processes that maybe involve like something that's wide, like an array of inputs, it's a good way to go. So great tool to have in your toolkit. In the next video, I'm going to do a different approach. I'm going to use the let function. So let function is pretty cool. You can do a lot with it. So join me for part 3 if you want.